আমায় ধরো জনার্দন, পাবো ভালো গোবর্ধন, কামাদি ছয় কংস চরে, ধ্বংস কর সম্প্রতি, বৃন্দাবনে বাস। বাজায়ে
पृथिवी शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगं शान्तिर्द्यौः शान्तिर्दिशः शान्तिरवान्तर दिशा शान्तिरग्निः शान्तिर्वायुः शान्तिरादित्यः शान्तिश्चन्द्रमा शान्तिर्नक्षत्राणि शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिर्वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्गौः शान्तिरजा शान्तिरश्वः शान्तिः पुरुषः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिर्ब्राह्मणः शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः शान्तिर्मे अस्तु शान्तिः. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu, sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our own hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om.
We will sing Meditate, O My Mind, on page 18.
Same as one.
Asato ma satkamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya, aviravirmayeti, rudrayate dakshinam mukham, tena mam pahi nityam. May the divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the divine consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. Friends and devotees, welcome. I hope all of us have had a good summer, and we resume the programs as we do every year with the Krishna festival. According to the lunar calendar, Krishna's birthday occurred quite some days ago, but God is timeless and is not bound by any calendar. So we are free to celebrate his birthday any day, and really every day. In some sense, every time we pray, every time we meditate, we're really, when and we are able to do it really well, it's really a birth of the divine in the heart. So in some sense, the state of enlightenment can be defined as a continual celebration of the birth of the divine, or the presence of the divine in our heart. And therefore, as we get ready to celebrate Krishna's birthday, I'm very happy, it's a great honor to have in our midst Swami Sarvapriyananda ji, who is the head of our center in New York. Many of you may have had a chance to listen to him. He spoke here once a couple of years ago, I think, was it? Yeah. 2 years ago? Yeah. So, but even if you have not seen him in person yet, I'm sure many more of you have seen him on YouTube. So if you put Vedanta on YouTube, you will find Swami Sarvapriyananda's name there. He's a great scholar and a very prolific teacher, and his teachings and his exposition of Vedanta has benefited people not only in India, where he was until about 4 or 5 years ago, but many people now all over the world thanks to technology. Swami Sarvapriyananda ji joined the order in 1994. He was ordained monk after his novitiate period. He was ordained into sannyasa in 2004. Right from the beginning, he was associated primarily with those centers of our order with focus on education. He was also a teacher at our monastics training college in Belur Math, and he came to Hollywood first as an assistant minister, and then he was there for a little over a year, and then since about a couple of years, he has been in New York. So we are very happy to have him in our midst today, and he will speak to us. His topic is Sri Krishna of the Gopis and the Gita. Please welcome Swami Sarvapriyananda.
Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness unto light, lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good morning, everybody. My pranams to Revered Swami Tyagananda ji, and it's a great honor to be invited to speak here, especially when you're commencing a new year after the summer. I know I was supposed to speak on Sri Krishna of the Gopis and the Gita. It's a catchy title which I came up with, but I don't know how much justice I can do to that. And for that, you have to blame Harvard University. It's deceptive. I didn't know it was so much hard work. So from the very first week itself, we have been doing lots of work. And I really haven't been able to prepare the way I wanted to, the vision I had for this talk. So it'll be more of a general talk of Sri Krishna's teachings on bhakti and jnana, on knowledge and devotion. Same theme, but maybe not as precise as I wanted it to be. A sadhu in the Himalayas said, there are only two ways in spirituality. There are only two ways. Know it or believe it. In Hindi, he said, Jano ya mano. Either you know it or believe it. Normally, we think religion is a matter for belief, faith. Faith is the word used for religion, especially in this country. But it's not just faith. There is another grand highway to spirituality, which is the path of knowledge. And so there are these two ways, and Sri Krishna is the teacher supreme in both of these ways. But in the Bhagavad Gita, right from the very start, we find the teachings on knowledge, on jnana. We know the story. Arjuna approaches Krishna with questions, and the questions are not about Vedanta. He never said to Krishna, give me a talk on Vedanta. He had a practical question, what he should do at that time, do or not do. And Sri Krishna does give him a practical reply. In fact, Sri Krishna's reply, if you look at the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, is threefold. First, he talks about the Atman, the path of knowledge, know who we are, what is our reality. Second, he gives an ethical answer. That this is your duty as a Kshatriya, as a moral duty, you have to do this. And third, he gives a practical answer also, that look at your fame, your reputation as a warrior, and people will laugh at you and call you a coward for ages to come if you do not do your duty. So, philosophical answer, ethical answer, and a very practical, down-to-earth, pragmatic answer. But it is the first one which is Sri Krishna's central message, at least in the first part of the Bhagavad Gita. So we will look at that first, the path of know it, or in Hindi, jano. Sri Krishna says, the first thing when he starts speaking, he uses the term, Nanu shochanti panditaha, the wise do not grieve. If you look closely, look at the words he has used. Panditaha, literally we use the word, in English nowadays also, Pandit has come into, the Wall Street Pandit who tells you about how the stock market is going to move, or political Pandit who tells you about elections and all of that. But Pandit originally meant a scholar. In Sanskrit, it means a scholar, usually of the scriptures. In the Bhagavad Gita, when he uses Pandit, Shankaracharya in one place comments, Pandit means Panda, the one who has got Panda. And again, those who are from India, immediately we misunderstand, because Panda means a priest in a temple. So Shankaracharya defines, what is Panda? Atma Vishaya Prajna, one who has self-knowledge, one who has realized one's own real nature, what one is. And what are we? The Vedanta tells us that we are not the body which we identify ourselves with. We are not even the mind, which more of us, any adult, sensitive, educated, thinking person, we generally do not say that I am a mass of flesh and blood. We say I am an embodied mind. We don't use those words, but we generally say something or feel something like, I am the person in this body. I don't say that exactly I am this mass of flesh, but I am the person in this body. Meaning thereby, I am the mind in this body. And that's about as far as we can go. But Vedanta goes further. Vedanta says, beyond the body, ever-changing, beyond the mind, ever-changing, is the unchanging Atman, the self, pure consciousness, existence, consciousness, bliss. And Sri Krishna talks about that. He tells Arjuna that know thyself, know what we truly are. Because once you know what you truly are, you go beyond sorrow. See, the whole purpose is, the way we put it in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, the Indian traditions, is going beyond the cycle of birth and death. Now, here in this country, if you say cycle of birth and death, many people, either if you're from a Judeo-Christian background or an atheist or an agnostic, people might say, I don't believe in many births and deaths. How do I know that I've had births earlier, and how do I know that I'm going to have births in the future? And why is that a problem? And even if that's how do I know if that is at all a problem? So are you giving me a solution, freedom from the cycle of births and deaths, a solution to an imaginary problem? There's this funny story about the old Wild West, where a person was caught by the police and brought before the judge on charges of selling real cures for imaginary diseases and imaginary cures for real diseases. So is Vedanta like that? Cycle of birth and death. How do I know that's a problem? And you're telling me here is the solution for the cycle of birth and death. No. Even if one does not accept that picture of many births and deaths, that can be reduced to something that is acceptable to everybody. Everybody. And that is overcoming suffering. I'm just reading a lot of Buddhism now at the Divinity School. And the whole point is, the Buddha said everything is suffering, and how do we overcome suffering? That there is suffering in life, and that we want to overcome suffering, that we want to attain satisfaction and peace, that nobody can dispute. Nobody can dispute. Even the rankest materialist atheist cannot dispute that. In some sense, that person is also trying to overcome suffering in his or her own life and attain some measure of peace and joy. And that is the purpose of Vedanta. Vedanta says, if we know ourselves as the Atman, we will know something which is beyond suffering, beyond birth and death, and which is ever the source of fulfillment and joy. Sri Krishna says, as in this body, Kaumaram Yauvanam Jara, there is childhood and youth and old age, and we take it as natural. A child grows up, becomes a teenager grows further into a youth and a middle-aged person and a senior person, and we take it as natural. Similarly, what we do not take as natural, or what we resist, is death. Sri Krishna says death is also a natural modification, inevitable modification of the body. Those who are born, certain is death for them. And then he adds, certain is birth for those who are dead. Dhruvam janma mritasya cha. This, Sri Krishna says, is of the body, not even of the mind. So Vedanta has this idea about the human personality, which is trichotomous, threefold. Physical body, which we see now, and the subtle body, which I was using the term mind for. When we look inside thoughts, feelings, emotions, ideas, the personality, my own life story, my narrative, this is the subtle body. And none of this, when you say subtle body, people might think, what's the proof of that? The proof is continuous. All the time we are experiencing it. The idea is that after the death of this physical body, the subtle body continues. And it is that one which undergoes further births and deaths and suffers and enjoys and does karma and gets the result of its karma. But what Vedanta tells us is something beyond the subtle body, deeper than the subtle body. You are not even the subtle body. That's why there's a reason why it's called a body. You are not even the subtle body. Like the physical body is like your outer clothing, the subtle body is like the inner clothing, but you are neither the physical body nor the subtle body. You are the witness of the physical body, consciousness which is aware of the physical body, consciousness which is aware of the subtle body. And all changes are in the world outside or are in the physical body. Birth is a change, growth is a change, aging is a change, and death is also a change of the physical body, it's not your change. So this Atman, is not born with the birth of the physical body, does not die with the death of the physical body. Somebody joked that what is life? Life is a dash from womb to tomb. So if you go to the graveyard, you will see born 1900, and there'll be a dash, and dead 1990. And so it's the dash between the womb and the tomb. But that's just the body. Krishna tells Arjuna that's just the body. And the mind too changes, the child's mind and the teenager's mind and the young person's mind and the old person's mind. And the mind every day from this today, just today, from the morning till now. How many times sleepy and then a cup of coffee, awake? How many times curious? How many times bored? How many times excited? How many times tired or depressed, annoyed and joyful? One day from the morning till now. How much the mind has changed. Mind changes continuously. This Atman neither is born nor dies with the birth of the body or death of the body, nor does it change with the changing body and the changing mind. It is an ever-existent awareness. Now Sri Krishna goes deeper. He says, 16th verse of 2nd chapter. I was really thinking whether I should really touch that verse or not, because it's one of the deepest verses of the whole Bhagavad Gita. One teacher in the Himalayas said, Ye to Bhagavad Gita ki hridaya hai. This is the heart of the Bhagavad Gita, the philosophical heart of the Bhagavad Gita, central. What is this word? Verse? Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate satah. There is no existence coming into being of the unreal. And of the real being, Atman, Brahman, there is no going out of being. It's ever existing. Basically, it's nothing more than the central idea of Advaita Vedanta. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya and Jiva Brahmeva Napara. Brahman alone is real, the world is an appearance, and you ask, what am I, real or false? You are real, don't worry. I can see that cloud of tension. Where is Krishna putting me, real or false? Jiva Brahmeva Napara. You are none other than the real. You are the Brahma, you are the absolute. And this has to be realized. Now, why is this so difficult? There is a lot here. Shankaracharya in his commentary is delighted with this verse, as you would expect him to be. So page after page of dialectics and very subtle investigation. Very powerful. Let me just see if I can convey the idea in a few words here. What is Sri Krishna trying to say here? He is doing no less than trying to prove that you, the witness consciousness, you are unborn and undying, immortal. You are beyond change, beyond death. And the logic he implies there, he uses there, is very profound. It is said that in the Bhagavad Gita, we know the story. Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata. And the Mahabharata, you remember how it was written? The sage Vyasa dictated it. And who was the stenographer? Ganesha. Yes. Who said that? That's absolutely right. Ganesha. Reminds me of a completely irrelevant and silly joke, but it seems there's a joke. It's like Saddam Hussein, when he was in jail, and he said, "I want to dictate my memoirs." I said, "All right, we'll give you a computer. Write it down." "No, I want a stenographer." "Why?" "Because I'm a dictator." Okay, sorry, I couldn't resist that. So Vyasa, in some sense, not in that sense, was also a dictator. Now the thing is, Ganesha is not going to take dictation. Ganesha is not going to put up with the dictator. So Ganesha said, you can dictate, but I'm going to write it down, and if you stop in between, then I'm going to stop too, and I'll never pick up the pen. And you can't dictate to me. Vyasa was not to be outdone. He said, it's difficult to compose verses in Sanskrit. And Ganesha is a pretty fast writer. So Vyasa said, all right, I have a condition too. You write it down, but don't write anything before understanding it. Ganesha said, done, because Ganesha is brilliant. He is really smart. And what Vyasa did was, as he was running out of breath and words and verses, he would give a particularly difficult verse. And Ganesha would go, And then Vyasa would draw a breath and quickly compose some more verses. So these difficult verses, they're called granthis or knots. And they're supposed to be, some of them are scattered throughout the Mahabharata. And probably this is one of those difficult verses. So you'll see why it is so difficult, but very profound, very deep. It goes like this. Let's start with an example. When you boil a potato, for example, it's hot potato. But if I ask you, does the heat belong to the potato or is it borrowed from elsewhere? Now, the characteristic of something which is borrowed, it comes and goes. When you borrow, it comes into your possession and you spend it and it goes away. It doesn't stay with you. So it's borrowed, doesn't belong to you really. Does the heat, the hot potato, the heat in the potato, does it belong to the potato? You'll say no, because before this it was in the refrigerator, it was cold. And now it's hot, but afterwards when you serve it, if you don't eat it fast enough, it's going to be cold again. So heat is gained and lost, and therefore heat is not an intrinsic property of the potato. It was borrowed. From where? You say from the boiling water. From the boiling water. And the water, is it intrinsically hot? Does it have heat of its own, or does it borrow heat from somewhere else? What do you think? It borrows heat. Because note that water was cold earlier. When you put it in the pan, the saucepan, then it's hot. And then later it becomes cold again. So, because heat comes and goes, the water is cold and then hot and then cold again, it has borrowed heat from elsewhere. Where has the water borrowed its heat from? The hot saucepan, which also in turn it's not hot in itself. It's borrowed its heat from the stove, the fire or the electric stove beneath. But the fire, does it have heat of its own or does it borrow heat from something else? It has heat of its own. You're right. I have a good help, TA there, teaching. Another term I learned. I had heard of teaching assistants, but TF. So teaching fellow. So she's a teaching fellow. It's borrowed, but fire doesn't borrow heat. Notice, as long as the fire lasts, it is hot. Everything else borrows heat, it becomes hot and then loses it. So here is a distinction I want to put before you. Intrinsic properties and extrinsic properties. A thing has an intrinsic property if that property always stays with it. Is always there. As long as the thing is there, the property is there. And if something comes and goes, it is in some sense not intrinsic to that entity. It is borrowed from elsewhere. Is this idea clear? So the sign of a borrowed property is it comes and goes. The sign of an intrinsic property is it doesn't come and go. It stays. It is where what holds the property holds it perpetually. Now, let me ask you this question. Suppose, and this raises lots of philosophical questions which I will not go into, but suppose, consider existence. If something had existence as a property, suppose existence is a borrowed property, then what will happen? Borrowed properties, remember, come and go. Heat, borrowed property for potato. So potato cold, hot, and cold again. If existence is a borrowed property of some entity, do you know what will happen to that entity? Existence will come, stay, go. When existence comes, what do we say? The thing is born, created, comes into being. And when existence leaves inevitably, what do we say? The thing is dead and destroyed and gone. So birth and death of anything, for example, the body, it means that that entity has borrowed existence. It doesn't have existence of its own. And the body, does it have borrowed existence? Yes, because the body is born and the body dies, borrowed existence. Change itself means borrowed existence because it goes from one state to another. The old state is lost and the new state is gained. The new state is lost, another state is gained. Change itself means something is borrowed. It's not extrinsic to, it's not intrinsic. If this is simple enough, now let me ask the actual question which Krishna is, he's putting to Arjuna. If something has intrinsic existence which is integral to it, which is its very nature, what will happen to it? What do you think will happen to it? No change, permanent. Will it be born? Not existing, coming into existence? Not hot, becoming hot? No. It's always existing. That means it is never a time when it is not born. When there's never a time when it does not exist. Always exists. So there will never be a time when it is born. After all, what is birth? Not existing, coming into existence. It's production, birth. And there will never be a time when it will die. After all, what is death? Losing existence. Destruction. But if existence is intrinsic to it, just like the fire has intrinsic, there'll never be a time when the fire was not hot and it became hot. There'll never be a time when the fire was hot and is now become cold. No. As long as the fire is there, it will be hot. Similarly, is there something which has intrinsic existence, which always exists before, now, and afterwards, which cannot die, and also by definition cannot be born? That, Sri Krishna says, is the nature of the Atman. And what is that thing? It is existence itself, being, what in the Upanishads is called Sat, isness. I will not go further into it. If you are interested in this line of thought, I recommend you look up Shankaracharya's commentary. Very deep, very, very interesting. And not just abstract. He will connect it back to our daily experience. How everything which comes and goes, therefore they have all borrowed existence. But existence itself, isness itself, never comes and goes. And you are that isness. It's not only isness, it's isness awareness. Sat Chit. And that Sat Chit is also fullness or Ananda. I'll leave it at this. Once you realize this, that I am this isness awareness, you know that you are beyond death. You are beyond change, which means you are beyond old age, aging, sickness. Where is aging? Body. Where is sickness? Body. Hunger and thirst? Body. Or the prana. Depression, misery? Mind. You are none of them. Very interesting idea, the way it sounds very philosophical, very abstract, but these are very powerful ideas for coming out of suffering. The idea is this. One Advaita teacher said, keep the properties where they belong, in the property holders. Do not mix up the properties. One. And second, do not identify with the property holders. I'm translating from Sanskrit. Dharma, dharmi. Dharma means property. Dharmi means one which has the property. What does this mean? This sounds terribly something that people would be discussing in philosophy department in Harvard. No, it's actually very simple. What is the property? Aging, death, disease. These are properties. Whose property? Body or existence? Body's property. Keep the property of aging in the body, where it belongs. Don't say, I, the consciousness, am aging. You see, the moment in your understanding you shift, disease in the body, nobody denies. And when Sri Ramakrishna says, he was asked, are you suffering from cancer? At first he said, yes, it hurts. And then the person who asked him, none other than Turiyanandaji, he said, but I see, sir, you are in great bliss. And Sri Ramakrishna burst out laughing and said, the rascal has found me out. What has he done in terms of Advaita? Has the cancer been cured? No. The property of the disease is in the property holder. What is the property holder? The diseased body. What is the property? The disease. I, the witness of the disease and the diseased body, I don't have the disease. It may sound like sophistry, but it actually works. Remember this formula. Don't mix up the properties. Don't identify with the property holder. Don't put the property of the body upon yourself. And don't identify with the body. Disease, whose disease? Body's disease. Depression, whose depression? Mind's depression. I am depressed. No. But Swami, I am. No, you are not. Are you aware of the depression? Of course, that's why I'm depressed. No. Here is the huge mistake. If you are aware of the depression, then the depression is an object. Just as this object, I'm aware of this object. Am I this object? No. I'm aware of this object. Am I this object? No. I'm aware of this object. Am I this object? You'll say, yes, maybe. That's where we had to make the big mistake. Up to the clock, fine, I'm not this object. But the moment, but this is also an object. After all, what's the definition of an object? That which is presented to your awareness. I can see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, smell it. Yeah. The body is an object. And its properties are in that object, not in me, the awareness. Similarly for the mind. If you think about it, this is a grand, direct, straight way to enlightenment. Do not take the properties of another upon yourself. And do not identify with another. Means, yes, you might say disease or pain is in the body, but I am the body, so I am in pain. No, I am not the body. If you identify with the holder of the property, then again the problem will come. So I am the witness of the property and of the holder of the property. Anyway, so this is the implication. Will it take away all sufferings? Will my pain cease? Will my financial problems be solved? Will my relationship problems be solved? Will I be able to find a parking spot outside Vedanta society if I become enlightened, if I am the Atman? Answer, unfortunately, no. No. It solves it at a very deep level, but at the surface level, problems, what you consider to be the world, the way it is going on, will go on. Sri Krishna tells this to Arjuna. Matra sparshastu kaunteya, shitoshna sukha dukkhada. The contacts of the objects with the senses will produce pain and pleasure and heat and cold. All of those will continue. Agama apai, they come and go. Tan titikshasva. You have to be patient with them. There is no solution to that, unfortunately. That is a given. But Vedanta gives you the strength, the foundation from which you can be patient with them. If you are mixed up with them, we get swept away. We suffer. If we watch and see clearly, put things where they belong, don't appropriate to oneself what is not one's own, then you see, at a very deep level, we are free from suffering. I was just reading just yesterday in one of the assignments, reading. It's good to have assignments and reading when you love the subject. After all, if you are interested in spiritual life, it's not work for you. It's a labor of love. The Buddha, very interesting dialogue. The Buddha was asked, not the Buddha, after the Buddha passed away, one of his disciples was asked, did the Venerable One, Buddha, did he suffer? Remember, very deep question. Buddha's 4 noble truths. There is suffering, there is a cause of suffering, there is freedom from suffering, 8-fold way, which will take you beyond suffering. Now I am the Buddha, so I should be beyond suffering. Question, did he suffer? And the disciple's answer was uncompromising. Yes, he suffered. And gives very clear examples. When he was walking in that forest, in that place, and a wood splinter got into his foot, he suffered. And he had stomach problems, and so his attendant went to search for hot water. He was suffering. And this, one after another. What does it mean? Exactly what Sri Ramakrishna said. That is the solution. Yes, on the level of the surface, the same thing continues for Sri Ramakrishna and Buddha and for us. But that is the only level at which we exist. But they, whether it is the Buddha or Sri Ramakrishna, they have found a deeper level of existence and identification, their real self, where there is no suffering. So if you ask the Buddha, if you ask Sri Ramakrishna, are you suffering? The first answer will be yes. If you ask really, the answer will be no. That is spirituality. The Buddha makes it even more clear. He says the nature of suffering, he's big on suffering, so Buddha. So the nature of suffering, he says, is like a man hit by 2 arrows. First arrow is what the world throws at you. Disease and disappointment and ill health and financial problems and difficult people, all of that the world throws at you, one's own body and mind problems. The second arrow is our reaction to it. And real suffering is the second arrow. Why? Because the same disease, the same disappointment, 2 persons will react entirely differently. One person will say it's terrible, other person will say, oh, that, I didn't even think about it. The entire reaction is different, very clearly so. Even the reaction to pain, physical pain, is also different. So the second arrow is the real source of suffering. And the Buddha says, what I am going to teach you. This is a very important point about spirituality. What does spirituality do for us? The Buddha says, what I am going to teach you takes away the second arrow. About the first arrow, he politely says, I cannot do anything. First arrow, it comes because of our past karma. That the results will keep coming. Vedanta also says that. Sri Ramakrishna also says that. Ups and downs in life will keep coming. But spirituality gives us the strength, the basis, the Atman from which we see we are impervious, we are safe. The great philosopher Wittgenstein said, religion is the search for absolute security. The search for absolute security. A very wise thing to say. And Vedanta says, Buddhism says, every spiritual tradition says it is possible. There is a secure place, our real nature, where we are not touched by the vicissitudes of life. So remember the distinction between first arrow and second arrow. Many people have wrong ideas, confused ideas about religion. If this is so easy, so direct, the path of knowledge, if all I have to do is to see which properties belong to me and which properties do not belong to me, and put the properties where they belong, not identify with the holder of the property, intrinsic property, extrinsic property, if I think about it, if it is clear, I will be free of all of this. If this is so easy, the path of knowledge, advertisement, it is effortless. It is instantaneous, here and now. Wow. Then you might ask, why are so few people enlightened? Why is it said to be so difficult? The difficulty lies in the fine print. We don't read that. Arjuna asked this question. So which is better, the path of love or the path of devotion? The path of devotion or the path of knowledge? Jano yamano, to two ways, which is easier? And Sri Krishna says, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon your predilections, avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavad bhiravapyate. The path of the unmanifest, the formless reality. I am that existence, consciousness, bliss. Very difficult. Very difficult. For whom? He says they're very difficult for those who are embodied. Now everybody is embodied, including Krishna. Here's a body, you can see. Ramakrishna and us, we are all embodied. But embodied here means the absolute connection, the identification with the body and mind. That's the difference between us and, say, Sri Ramakrishna or the Buddha or Sri Krishna. Just an aside here, because I'm delving so much into Buddhism, especially Tibetan Buddhism, where the Buddha said, the truth is it true that the Atman exists, what Vedanta says? He said, did I say it does? Oh, it doesn't. Did I say it doesn't? And Nagarjuna said that what Buddha was saying is the middle way, neither extremes of eternalism nor extremes of nihilism. So the middle way. There's a whole philosophy built up over it. Fine. Very interesting. We are studying the text of Nagarjuna, which was written 2,000 years ago, 500 years after the Buddha. And that was commented on by a Tibetan Buddhist philosopher, Tsongkhapa, in about more than 1,000 years after Nagarjuna. And we are reading it nearly 1,000 years after the Tibetan commentator. So it's a huge history. But why am I bringing this up? Just today, one of the top philosophers living in the world today, I won't take his name, he just texted me. I think I have it here. Let me just read it out. Yes. He texted me just before I came here. Very interesting passage in Kathamrita, April 9, 1886, at Kashipur Garden House. Sri Ramakrishna, who rarely expresses interest in the Buddha, comments with characteristic accuracy. Buddha ki jano, do you know what is a Buddha? Bodh Swarup ke chinta kore kore tai hawa. By continuously meditating on pure consciousness, you realize that you are pure consciousness. Nastik kena hote jabe? Why do you call him an atheist? Jekhane swarup ke bodh hoy, shekhane osti nastir moddher avastha. When you truly are enlightened, that is the middle ground between exists and does not exist. Asti nastir moddher avastha. And then the philosopher comments. This literally matches Nagarjuna's Madhyamaka philosophy, the middle way between nihilism and eternalism. Amazing comment from Sri Ramakrishna. Anyway, but it's difficult. Then there is another way. Sri Krishna talks about the path of love, devotion. How does that work? And why is it easier? Path of love, you see, this is the comparison. In the path of knowledge, the fine print is you need certain qualifications. The mind which is inquiring must be endowed with endowed with the fourfold qualifications. Viveka, a discernment between the eternal and the non-eternal. Vairagya, a dispassion for the non-eternal, which, by the way, is a big thing. What is the non-eternal? Remember, not intrinsic property of having existence. What is that? Which things come under it? Everything. Everything that we experience in this world. And a dispassion for everything. How many of us have that? And how difficult it is. To some extent we have it. On a nice Sunday morning, you're sitting here at Vedanta Society listening to Vedanta. So you have some amount of dispassion for the non-eternal. But still, not to the extent that it leads to enlightenment directly. Then the sixfold treasure, they've cheated a little bit. They said 4 qualifications are necessary. In the third qualification, they're packed in 6 more. So if you count it, actually it comes to 9. Calmness of mind, control of sense organs, of spiritual fortitude, withdrawal from too much sensory enjoyment, focus on Vedanta, and a deep faith that this is true even though I have not realized it yet, but I will. And finally, the last one, an intense desire to be free, a really intense desire, putting everything else aside in life, only this thing, only one thing. How will I realize that I am the Atman and be free? If you do not have this, one teacher told me, if you have these qualifications and you come to Vedanta, all the advertisement is true. Instantaneous, effortless, direct realization. But if this is lacking, if any of this is lacking, if this is where the shoe pinches, if this is lacking, then what will happen is, at best, in Vedanta, when we study it, we will like it, we'll enjoy it, develop a taste for it, which is all very good. We'll get the feeling, I learned a really cool philosophy. Nice. Did it help you? Not so much. Earlier I had worldly problems. Now I have worldly problems plus Vedantic problem. When will I be enlightened? 40 years listening to Vedanta talk, no enlightenment. So worldly problem plus Vedanta problem. Now this is where bhakti comes in. Bhakti says that, so what qualifications? Nothing. Nothing. No, just come. Just add God to your list. This is a deep, simple, but very powerful secret about bhakti. How do you fall in love with God? It's easy to say love God, but it's very difficult. How? This is a very simple but effective way. Say, my God. We say my to many things. My father, mother, husband, wife, children, my house and car, my dog. Sometimes after DOG, put GOD. One more thing you add, my God. After, you don't have to go have dispassion for all that does not have the intrinsic property of existence. You don't have to have dispassion for all of that. You can love all of that. You can say my to all of that. Keep all of that. Add one more thing. Add God in whichever form you love, my Krishna, my Gopala. There is Gopala, my Gopala. What will happen? There's a beautiful, Bhikshu Pada Prasarana Nyaya. It's an analogy, which means a holy beggar comes to your house and says, give me a corner to stay in. There's such wandering monks in India. I don't want anything. Just give me a corner. I'll just stay there. I won't be any trouble. You don't know what you're letting yourself in for. You said that, all right, you can stay in that corner. And he says, Pada Prasarana Nyaya means the holy beggar stretching out his feet. So like the camel's nose, but in a good way. Stretching out the feet. I need little more room for stretching out my feet. And I have a little image of Gopala. And that has to be put in a sacred corner. So I take another corner. I'll put Gopala there. You say, all right. After all, it's Gopala. How can you refuse? Next day in the morning, you see that guy is there out in your garden picking your choicest flowers. Why? Gopala's worship. So, okay. After all, it's Gopala. You're going to cook your breakfast and go for your office. She says, wait. First cooking is for Gopala. The prasada is for Gopala. And that too, a special corner in the kitchen has to be for Gopala. Slowly you find Gopala takes over your whole life. And that's a good thing. Once you add God to your life, God slowly takes over your whole life. But you have to say this. This is the secret. My Gopala, my Krishna. And it's my Krishna, the very name means the one who attracts. Then the attraction will start working. You see, how it works is this. In the Naradiya Bhakti Sutras, there's a sutra which says, Amrito bhavati, tripto bhavati, Siddho bhavati, amrito bhavati, tripto bhavati. Siddha means perfected. Amrita means immortal. Tripta means satisfied, fulfilled. Now, normally, siddha, perfection, requires spiritual practice. So, the Sanskrit word for siddha is connected to the Sanskrit word sadhaka. Who becomes siddha, perfected? The practitioner, sadhaka. Sadhaka does sadhana, practice, and becomes siddha. So, sadhaka, sadhana, siddha, the same word. And who gets amrita, immortality? The jnana, one who realizes Brahman, realizing Brahman, amritatvam, one becomes immortal. I just chanted, mrityu amritam gamaya, take us to immortality. How? Upanishad says, Krishna says, by realizing the immortal nature. Same thing, intrinsic existence. You realize your immortal nature, amrita, but through knowledge. Through practice one becomes perfected. Through knowledge one gets immortality. And then tripta, satisfied. Usually the idea is through bhoga we become tripta. Bhoga means enjoyment. We look for satisfaction in the world. We eat and watch movies and relationships and study and all of these things are bhoga to get satisfaction. Why am I saying this? One teacher of bhakti put it beautifully. In Hindi carries a punch. I'll tell you in English and then tell you the original. He says, look, without practice, perfection. Without Vedantic knowledge, immortality. Without worldly enjoyment, full satisfaction. This is the glory of bhakti. In Hindi he said, Are bhakti ki wo mahima, bin sadhan ke siddhi, bin gyan ke amritatva, bin bhog ke tripti. Now, don't be mistaken. There is spiritual practice there. There is knowledge there. And there is delight in God there. But none of it feels like, this practice does not feel like practice. When you take care of your children, you love your children and take care of them. Do you say, I am now practicing my bhakti towards the child? No, it's a natural expression. You're doing a lot of work. We do a lot of work to take care of children. But all of that work doesn't feel like work. You don't send them the bill at the end of it. Thank you for riding with us and thank you for the tip and all of that Uber. You don't send it to the child. But no, it is because of love, practice does not feel like practice. And knowledge, Sri Ramakrishna says, the mother has shown me whatever is there in your Veda Vedanta. And shown me means whatever we are struggling to realize, intrinsic property, extrinsic property, and so on and so forth. Even Ganesha is scratching his elephant head. What does it mean? The Divine Mother shows Sri Ramakrishna, this is the reality. By the grace of Krishna, by the grace of the Lord whom we worship, knowledge comes automatically. I have seen monks in our order who are naturally very devoted. They may not have spent too much time in reading Vedantic texts or going into dialectics, but when we talk with them about the conclusions of Vedanta, they get it just like that, which a very smart professor struggles to get. A smart philosophy professor knows all the arguments, not convinced. And this person who has devotion throughout his life, when you tell the person about it, he says, yes, that's right. That's how it is. So devotion leads to jnana smoothly. And bin bhog ke tripti. How is this person who doesn't have money and cars and relationships and all of that, how is this person so joyful, so fulfilled, so radiates joy and holiness? In his company or her company, you feel uplifted. So that is the power of bhakti. At the end, I will say, choice, which one? Swami Vivekananda says you don't have to choose. Do all of that. Jnana and bhakti and meditation and service. All of the 4 yogas. And in fact, this is also Sri Krishna's teaching. In the Bhagavad Gita, par excellence, book of knowledge and devotion and work and meditation. I pray to the Divine Mother that on this auspicious occasion, may our lives be lit up by the light of knowledge and the fragrance of devotion and the peace of meditation and the great blessings of service to one and all. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. Thank you.
Swami Saropriyanandaji, thank you very much for your very, very thoughtful and very enjoyable exposition. Some of these key teachings that we see from the Gita and in Krishna's teachings in general, but especially also from the life of Krishna. Oftentimes it is said that the life of these great ones is itself the best commentary on their teachings. So as we begin to continue in the days and months ahead to reflect on these teachings, it might be also helpful to look at the life of Krishna, the life of all these great ones whom we today worship as incarnations, as saints, as prophets. Because through their life, all of these principles, which sometimes might appear to be somewhat abstract, become real in something that become more relatable to our own lives. So this has been a very good beginning, and I hope now that Swami Saropriyanandaji for the next few months will be living in this area, we might have a chance to hear him more often. So beginning this week, all of our regular programs will resume. Our Arati and meditations on Tuesday and Saturday evenings will be there on 6 to 7. All of you are welcome for that. Our Wednesday study meetings will also continue. We concluded the Kathopanishad before we close for the summer. And now we are going to take up Swami Vivekananda's talks he gave at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago for a deeper study. This little more than 125 years since Swami Vivekananda spoke there. And even as we study these ancient texts and call them kind of scriptures, oftentimes in Vedantic tradition, the first thing that often come to mind is, of course, the Brahma Sutras, the Gita, the Upanishads. What sometimes may not strike us is that scriptures don't stop at any particular time. That as enlightened beings come, extraordinary people come on the face of this earth, their teaching become a scripture themselves. So even when we read Vivekananda's works, just because most of them are in English, and it seems, well, I can understand English, why do I need anyone to come and explain to me, or why do we need to discuss on it, why do we need to reflect on it? We will realize, and as many of us have already done so, that even an apparently simple statement, not just from Vivekananda's works, you read the parables of Jesus, the stories that the Buddha told, the conversations of Ramakrishna, for all their simplicity, the more we reflect on it, the underlying deeper layers of meaning become revealed to us. And therefore, these are no less a scripture than the Gita and the Upanishads. It's with that idea in mind that we will be taking up the study of Swami Vivekananda's talks at the Parliament of Religions beginning this Wednesday. So these are the programs going forward. Next Sunday, as we do every month, we will have Antar Yoga. We'll have reading. For those of you who have forgotten what Antar Yoga is, well, Antar Yoga really, I remember just, when was it? And last week someone asking me, so you have yoga also there? And actually on Wednesday we had a group of BU students from the theology department, on Friday, last Friday, they visited us, and in the program they said, Antar Yoga, you have yoga. And I had to kind of say, okay, yes, we have yoga, but not the yoga you have in your mind. So Antar is inner, and yoga primarily is a form of spiritual discipline. Any kind of anything that connects me. Yoga really means joining, a union. Anything that, and one way of understanding that is that which connects the finite to the infinite, that which connects the devotee with God. And so Antar Yoga really is that kind of an inner connection. So it's a Sanskrit equivalent, you might say, to what we generally refer to as spiritual retreat. And so we have that once every month on one Sunday, and we'll have readings by two of our members and friends and devotees. We'll have reflection. We have a lot more music on Antar Yoga days than on other Sundays, and a brief reflection. And we have soup for everybody. And most importantly, we celebrate the birthdays of everyone born in that month on the Antar Yoga Day, which means next Sunday we'll have a big cake waiting for everybody, but especially for those who are born in the month of September. So I just want to have an idea. How many of you are born in the month of September? Oh, we'll get really a big cake now. There are a lot of you present. So, and please feel free to invite your friends, your members of your family, even if they have never come to the Vedanta Society, at least for the cake. Come on the next Sunday. So that's our program next Sunday. Now we'll do the closing prayer, then we'll have Arati, we'll do Sarva Mangala, and then we'll go and have the delicious meal, potluck lunch waiting for all of us there. Okay? So please open the PC on page 3 of your books. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.
जी महाराज जी की जय। जय श्री वृंदावन बिहारी कृष्ण भगवान की जय।
We will sing Sarvamangala on page